Hey guys. So on Thursday, EA did their first spotlight event called the Future of FPS with a handful of developers that work on Apex Legends and Battlefield 2042. Christian Grass and Oscar Gabrielson from DICE talked about Battlefield 2042, and Chad Grenier and Vince Zampella talked about Apex Legends. Today we're going to be focusing on Battlefield 2042 because that's my jam.
General Manager of DICE. Today we're going to talk about first-person shooters, especially Apex Legends and the recently announced Battlefield 2042. So let's jump in.
So I'm just going to cut right to the chase. I haven't written a script for this or anything, so I'm just kind of talking and hoping it makes sense. But there weren't a whole lot of extra details released about Battlefield 2042 at this event, but there were some subtle hints dropped, and one thing was confirmed that was just rumor up until this event. Christian Grass did confirm that fan-favorite maps from previous entries in the Battlefield series are coming to 2042, and they will most likely be part of the new quote-unquote experience or game mode that is coming with this game that they haven't talked about. They're still saving the meat of it for the event on the 22nd, so mark that on your calendars.
So the work that Oscar and Christian have been doing for Battlefield hasn't even been revealed yet, but Christian, I'm hoping that you can maybe give us a little bit of a hint.
So I can't say that much about it. What I can say is this, though, is that one of the components in this experience that we're creating is that we're adding some of the fan-favorite maps back into Battlefield 2042. But the entire experience, you have to wait a bit longer before we reveal what that is.
But it's still interesting. We got confirmation that old maps are coming back, and it has my mind running with all my old favorites and all the fan favorites from previous games and what I would like to see come back in Battlefield 2042. It's unclear if these maps are going to come back and be a one-to-one representation of how they were in previous titles. If that is the case, I suspect that the player count for these maps are going to stay at 64 players, because if you double the player count on those, it's going to be absolute chaos. But who knows? I know the player base loves meat grinders like Metro and Lockers, so maybe that's a possibility. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I think it would be really cool if they took these maps and expanded on them to make them work for 128 players. Maybe just pushing out the boundaries of the map a little bit and adding some new points of interest, some new towns, new buildings, new capture points. I think that would be really cool, just building on the fan favorite maps and adding new things for players to explore and play with. But again, none of that is confirmed. We know that old maps are coming. We don't know in what form or fashion they will be in. So we're going to have to wait and see, but still some really interesting information there. And Oscar dropped some subtle hints about cloud computing and procedural level design. These comments are a little bit vague. I'm not really sure what they mean. I'm interested in the cloud computing aspect. I don't know how future games will integrate cloud computing into gaming. Besides what we've already seen in terms of game streaming, I don't know if that qualifies as a type of cloud computing. I guess it technically does. But as a matter of integrating it directly into the game design and gameplay, I'm not really sure what that means. It is an interesting thought. I'm thinking of it kind of in terms of like a force multiplier in terms of level design. So just making things even bigger, increasing visual fidelity and sharpening artificial intelligence and things like that.
Cloud computing has really changed a bunch of other industries, and gaming kind of barely touched on it. So if you think about a game like Battlefield, we have things like AI in the game now, destruction, actually procedural level creation. And the next-gen consoles, there are, of course, super powerful. But if we move much of that logic out to the cloud, which is kind of servers in other language, we can do some really high-scale computing that we haven't been able to do in the past. Destruction, visual fidelity. And I think it's just a couple of years away. And then you'll see some pretty cool shooter games out there, I'd imagine. But we'll see. Soon, trademark.
Battlefield 2042 being one of them?
No comments.
In regard to his comments about procedural level generation, that's a very interesting term. It's a very interesting technology when you use it in the context of Battlefield, because Battlefield games are already so dynamic. And adding a technology like that could make the gameplay even more so. It could amplify that dynamic sandbox aspect of the Battlefield franchise. But I suspect he might just be referencing destruction in-game. Things like levolution and more small-scale destruction, like exploding walls and things of that nature. I think that could be considered a kind of procedural level alteration or design, because it does change the dynamic of the map. Like even in previous entries in the series, I'm going to use Siege of Shanghai as an example. When you take down the skyscraper in the middle of the map, it completely changes the dynamic of the map across the entire thing. Not only is the skyscraper gone, and there's a giant pile of rubble in the middle that changes the whole traversal of that area and the combat dynamic of that area, but the entire map gets shrouded, engulfed in this fog, this dust, and it makes visibility harder. It changes the way players move through the map and engage their targets in general. So in my mind, that is kind of a procedural level alteration that is kind of at the discretion of the players. They can activate it whenever they want. So I don't want to make like a mountain out of a molehill or anything with these comments that Oscar is saying in this presentation. But it is interesting to think about, and I still think that there's a lot of potential for Battlefield 2042 to be more dynamic and more unexpected in its gameplay moments than previous entries. So that's pretty much it for the presentation. That's all the information we got. We got a couple of little interesting thought experiments from Oscar to chew on, thinking about procedural level design and cloud computing and things of that nature. But we also got something concrete in that Christian revealed that old fan favorite maps are definitely coming back in 2042. And it's very exciting because usually for previous entries we had to wait for DLC, and it was kind of a surprise later on down the road what maps would be returning. I'm thinking particularly of Second Assault in Battlefield 4. But in terms of what maps I'd like to see make a comeback, I definitely have some favorites, and I'm thinking about maps that would fit the context, fit the story and the lore and the time period of Battlefield 2042. And I've come up with 5 favorites that I think would fit very well and I would love to see return. And those are Caspian Border, Operation Metro, classic meat grinder map, Gulf of Oman. Gulf of Oman, I think, was kind of underappreciated. It was definitely liked by the community, but not as much as I think it deserves. I would love to see it come back in 2042. Strike at Karkand is massively popular, and that is definitely another one of my favorites. I played that map a ton in Battlefield 2. And finally, Grand Bazaar. I've found that I really like the maps inspired by real locations in Afghanistan, the Middle East, the conflict zones like during the First and Second Gulf Wars. I find those to be really grounded and really interesting, but I love other maps for different reasons. Operation Metro is the classic meat grinder map. Coincidentally, it was the map they used for the beta testing before the game was officially released. And they remastered it a couple of times, once for Battlefield 4 and another for Battlefield 5. Caspian Border is another classic map from Battlefield 3. I just love how it flows. I love the different areas you can fight in. It's not only great for infantry and armor gameplay, but it's great for air combat too. There's lots of open sky, there's AA vehicles and jets and helicopters for both sides. And just something about the map, it just gels so well. There's the forested areas you can fight in, and then there's the little hill in the middle with the radio tower that can be destroyed. It's just a really fun map, and it was featured in possibly the most kick-ass trailer for any Battlefield game I've ever seen. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind the curve when it comes to timing of these videos. I have a lot of stuff going on in my life. I have a full-time job that I have to go into every day, and a family and personal commitments that I just can't avoid. But anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. What are your all-time favorite Battlefield maps? What would you like to see return to Battlefield 2042? Leave it in the comments down below. With all that being said, I'm Oscar Mikey. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.